Now for Inside Utah Politics.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We do begin this morning with Michelle Quist, business litigation and appellate attorney with Holland & Hart, here to talk about the legalities surrounding Utah's new social media laws. Michelle, always glad to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
So these two bills passed. They do a number of things like require parents' approval before a child at a certain age gets on social media. They talk about the algorithms and whatnot. There was some opposition to this. They both passed, as I mentioned, were signed into law. Give us a picture of, before we get into who this opposition was.
Opposition came from social media companies and some constitutional law scholars across the country, concerned about, this is first in the country bill. And so, the concern was what it would mean, for other bills, from other states across the country and how it would play out, really.
We did hear state leaders say they thought other states would follow suit. To this point, I'm not aware of any that have, and Utah still remains the sole law in the country when it is in regard to this.
I think so too. I think other states are looking at it and investigating, but so far we're number one. Okay,
let's dig into it a little bit more as to why people are on the opposition side of this. And the first thing would be some legal barriers. You have some insight here with your background. Talk to us about what some of those issues are when you talk about it from a legal standpoint.
Well, legally, the concern obviously is First Amendment issues. Just because youth are involved, youth still do have rights. The First Amendment still does apply to children, to youth. Case law has always applied the First Amendment to youth, and it would still apply here. And so just because they are children, concerns of their First Amendment would apply here.
We have seen one of our state representatives in Congress take up this issue in Representative Stewart on more of a federal level. Would it be a different story here if this was taken on from the federal level where it was the same all across the country versus kind of this patchwork of states potentially getting involved? Would there be any difference there?
Same First Amendment application, okay. Yeah. Same concerns that that we're limiting a child's right to access the First Amendment, to access a social media site, to limit their ability to access site, to to express themselves, to that an age verification would chill their First Amendment right.
So we've heard a lot of supporters of these laws say, well, look, we restrict children on a lot of things, alcohol and other issues within our communities. So the main difference there, from what I'm hearing from you, all centers around the First Amendment.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Talk about privacy, because there's another issue with that. When you have to start verifying someone's age, what kind of issues do we start to come into there?
Well, right, and I don't think that people realize how all-encompassing these bills are. So when you have to verify age, that means that everybody has to verify age. So when you have to get on a social media website and verify that you're not a minor, that means you have to verify that you're an adult. And so everybody has to verify. You have to get on and verify that you are an adult. That means every person, every Utah resident under these bills has to verify that they are 18 or older. And that means for anybody using a social media website with 5 million users or above, that means if you're using something like All Trails, you would have to get on and verify that you are over 18 years old.
And you would do that by what? A driver license, birth certificate? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's the question, and I think that's what they're spending this year. It goes in effect March 2024. That's what they're trying to figure out, whether it's a driver's license, whether it's biometric data, and that's the privacy concern. Is what will they require for you to verify your age? In this age of data breaches, if they're requiring you to verify age, what information is out there? you and of every adult, every Utah resident using every social media app that you're using. How many data points are out there?
Yeah. Talk about enforceability. Is that going to be an issue? And how do you potentially go about enforcing this?
That's also, I think, what they're trying to figure out between now and March 2024 is every time you sign into some kind of social media app, how are they going to enforce it? How are they going to link every child to every family? What data points are going to be called into question? What about, divorced parents? Who? What family links are connected? Those are the questions.
How do you get into that? If you have a divorce situation and dad, say, wants to get child a social media account when mom doesn't, how do you balance that?
That's the question. Well, and also you have these bills allow the parents to look at all the content, and that includes the messages. And so parents can look at children's messages. And also there are questions about privacy for LGBTQ youth. And when you have so their privacy issues are at play when you have parents who are having issues with LGBTQ youth, and if their harm might be in question if they're looking at those messages.
The governor and bill sponsors are very confident that they'll be able to prevail in this. And they say their motivation is that they have data proving that it does great harm to our youth. So in that balance, and I know you have kids too, and you probably see some of that in your own life, but when you try to balance those two, is there a path forward to coming to maybe a happy medium there?
I mean, the motivations are great. It's obviously a great motivation, and also, we've seen the data on depression and sexual harm for women, and bullying and young girls. We don't know yet what the balance is, and I think they've been trying for decades to try to monitor the social media. I don't know what the balance is either, but I think they're trying to. I think that's why they didn't implement it immediately.
Yeah. They did put that off. You already mentioned some modifications that could potentially come. Anything else on your mind that may change before this actually is implemented? Well,
I mean, I think litigation might ensue. I think that it could be stayed during litigation. I mean, they've been trying to implement changes for decades, and so. I think if anything is going to be modified, I think they're looking at that now. I will be surprised if it goes into effect March 2024. I think we'll see.
What about the elements of it that specifically target algorithms and say, stop targeting our children? Is there validity when it comes to that? Definitely. And ads. I think the ads are good changes for our children. The curfews are interesting for a conservative state where we don't necessarily prefer government regulation. I think there's a better regulation or a non-regulation where we should trust parents more to not put curfews. I think some parents are wondering whether the government is the one who should be doing that. Yeah, I've heard that quite a bit. All right, a lot of people, no one's going to say there's not an issue. The issue is how do you address it, and we will see how that plays out. Yeah. Appreciate your insight from the legal point of view. Thanks so much for being here. You're welcome. Coming up, President Biden officially announcing